Finally, after many years, it's here. The vampire RPG game to top them all. Bloodlines 2 has been in development for a very long time, and it's finally time we take a look at this game and see if it actually lives up to the previous game. I have no understanding as to why that game was so popular. If only I knew. By the end of this video, you will know if Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is worth your time or not. So go grab yourself a nice big goblet of blood and slurp it down as we take a look at this new vampire RPG.
Looking for a date?
Sorry, lady. Not interested. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got an after-funeral party to attend.
And don't be alarmed. I may look like a blood-sucking monster, but don't worry, I'm actually just a mid-tier YouTuber. Much worse. Now, first thing that I want to mention is if you're worried about the clans being locked behind the paywall, that's no longer the case. They have actually gone back on that. They've listened to fan feedback, which is very good, and now you can actually play as all of the clans on release, so that's for people who don't know that information. I highly recommend, if you're interested in this game, to check out my last video on Bloodlines 2, as I go deep into the older game, comparing it to this game, and talk about the controversy and all of the lead up to this game being released. I'm just gonna focus on the review today. So like the video, because that does actually help support the channel, and it means YouTube hopefully won't bury my video, but let's be honest, they don't like any channel under 100k, so please help me out, it really does mean a lot. So let me tell you straight off the bat that this is not a massive open world RPG, and it's not a massive sandbox RPG like the previous game. The best way to summarize Bloodlines 2 and what this game actually is now is similar to that of Deus Ex: Mankind Revolution. That is the game I thought of the most while actually getting to see the hands-on gameplay of Bloodlines 2 and experiencing what it has to offer. It is very similar to that kind of RPG where it's very condensed, very small, but focused, okay? And that actually, in my opinion, is a good thing. I don't like massive bloated RPGs unless they do the open world very well. This is much more condensed, and it means that the world feels more alive, you know? Not every NPC you can interact with. I wouldn't say it's as fleshed out as the previous Bloodlines game where more NPCs you can talk to, but there are plenty that you can actually interact with and drain.
Let's see how special you are. Special you are.
It seems that modern day gaming loves the storytelling device of the Johnny Silverhand, you know, having two personalities in your head, and that is what's going on here. You are basically two characters, and you will be having conversations with Fabian, and I will say that the voice actor of Fabian, for some reason, to me, just doesn't quite nail it. It kind of feels like he's a little bit of a pretentious femboy, and maybe that is just his character, but some of the writing of Fabian's lines just scream modern day dialogue. And luckily that isn't the case for all of the dialogue, but it does seem to be the case with him at times, not always, but I just thought I should mention it. So now I'm going to get into the positives and negatives of this Bloodlines 2 review, and basically discuss what makes this game good, what makes this game bad. I'm going to be as objective as possible and then give you my subjective takes at the end. I think that's only fair, as I don't give you a review score because that does not really help. This is going to appeal to a certain player base and not to others. Now, if you're like me and you're a passionate gamer and you love trying out new games, especially AAA games, especially when they come out day one, but you're tired of the pricing structure, especially with big games coming out day one, well, luckily I have you covered thanks to today's sponsor, Eneba. This website will help you save money by finding huge discounts on games. This video is sponsored by Eneba, your one-stop shop for all things gaming. Whether you're looking for discounted game keys, gift cards, or in-game currency, Eneba's got your back. Fast, reliable, and always crazy affordable. With over 40,000 digital products that you can buy, you can get huge sales on so many different things, from PlayStation to Xbox to Switch and Steam, Xbox, PlayStation, Epic Games, and more. Simply find the game you're looking for and head to purchase. It covers everything from PayPal to credit cards. It's got you covered with an amazing Trustpilot score. If you need help with purchasing, then just simply contact support. It's everything you need and a gamer's paradise if you're a hardcore enthusiast. And if you're subscribed to this channel, a wise one, you will know how to take advantage of quality deals like this. Why pay full price when you can just get the games you want at a cheaper price thanks to Eneba? It's a no-brainer. It has massive sales on the latest games releasing, which is fantastic. And if you do need support, Eneba has your back with 24-hour support and an excellent secure payment system. So head down below, use my link, and secure a great discount on games today. Like I said, the world space actually reminds me of Deus Ex because of how it's all connected and all the NPCs usually feed into some kind of quest or some kind of side activity, which I'll talk about later. But the actual combat itself feels more like Dishonored, okay? So it's got the best of both worlds. Now, of course, this is not an immersive sim. With the RPG stuff, I would describe it more like Mass Effect, more like a Telltale series game. So you can't solve situations in any way that you want. It is still limited, even depending on your clan. The clan stuff is more around combat, of course flavor text as well, and some choices throughout the game, but it's not completely open-ended like the older games, so don't go in expecting this to be a deep, proper, full RPG. This is much more of an action RPG now, and you just have to accept that it's not the same anymore.
What?
And you are in fact very, very overpowered because you are playing as a legacy vampire, so do bear that in mind. But I like the fact that difficulty isn't exactly an option, it's more based around your clan choices. So as you level up, as you go through combat, you have the chance to actually, grab abilities, and they are fundamentally gameplay altering abilities, not just percentage increases. For example, teleportation, or making people explode in a pile of goop and blood, or just landing like 500 hits at the same time, or slamming people into, a pillar, or picking up someone and slamming them into others, or just simply tricking the minds of others, or persuading them to come to your side in combat and out of combat to feed on them. Stuff like this really alters the gameplay. Now, as I was alluding to, your clan choice actually, changes your abilities and the difficulty of the game. It's not a set difficulty, it depends on your clan, because some clans are going to be more overpowered than others, so I really like that choice in gameplay, and it means there's a lot of replayability here. Also, you can dabble with abilities from other clan groups, but it does cost a lot more, so you have to think, really wisely about what you're choosing with your abilities, and I really like that. It makes it feel much more weighty, and that you can't be, everything. You have to choose your playstyle.
Are you serious?
Now, the reason why I compared it to something like Mass Effect or the Telltale series is because basically there's a reputation system here going on in the background. So when you talk to NPCs, you will see that they actually react to what you say. They will actually have an emotional response, and then this is basically going to align them to you further in the future, or make them, dislike you. And then this will, impact some story choices. Now, it's not a massive sandbox RPG, and this is only from the hands-on early access press access that I've actually seen at events. Go check out my Tokyo Game Show vlog if you're interested. So the RPG choices and the dialogue choices don't have to be as complicated, even though I would prefer it to be that way. I still think, as a modern RPG, it ticks all of the right boxes. So some negatives I have for this game is basically the fact that this game can be a little bit easier at times, like I said, depending on your playstyle. And also, the AI seems to be quite terrible, especially when it comes to stealth. They seem to be completely brain dead. In combat, they're good enough, but I do think stealth is lackluster, and that the AI just sometimes doesn't react to what's going on, which is very disappointing.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
Also, it's worth noting that there are some side missions and side stuff to do that does just kind of feel like filler, like delivery missions and stuff like that, but there is also enough side content that you can, pick and choose what you want to do, or just ignore it and, focus on the main narrative stuff. And just engaging with NPCs in the world, having conversations with them, and then, choosing to feast on them or not and live up to the masquerade. That's the whole fun of this, is living within vampire society. And although it's not as, complicated, and it doesn't feel as, like in-depth as the previous Bloodlines game, when it comes to the whole vampire society and the masquerade, you still do have to follow the rules. You can't be seen just sucking on people. Now, sadly, some of the things I don't like about this game is the detective-based gameplay. That feels very tacked on and very lackluster, similar to The Witcher 3, where basically it tells you exactly what you need to be doing at all times, so you don't actually have to think for yourself. Basically, everything simply gets highlighted. There's no actual, detective stuff going on here. It's basically holding your hand the whole time. The next thing is the dialogue itself. Now, I said this in my previous video about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Sadly, at times, the writing does feel like modern day writing. And what I mean by that is, wink wink, little, jokes, or just things that kind of break the immersion, because for some reason modern day games seem to love the fact that they can kind of be quippy or, kind of on the nose, or just kind of cringeworthy at times. Now, it does seem to take itself more seriously than the previous game, but there are times where the writing just feels a little bit off, and, some things that characters say is just a little bit weird. But most of the time, the writing is good, and the story itself is interesting, because the world itself is interesting. So I can give it a pass on that, but so many people missed this game, but Vampire, okay, go play that game if you love vampire games like I do. That has such good quality writing and intellectual conversations to be had about morality and stuff. It's such a brilliant game. You might not get that on the same level in this game. That's my point. It's just nice and refreshing to have a good single-player game with tons of replayability, some light RPG stuff. It's not a full-on RPG, but there is enough here that you can replay it. I like, the kind of out-of-combat moments as well, where you have to gather information from certain NPCs. That's much more interesting than just, following what's highlighted in the detective mode, and just having everything, outlined. Because basically, it will tell you when there's something of interest to interact with, and I think, and I hope you can just remove that on the full release, because I really don't like it. But, actually talking with NPCs and, figuring out information from them, that is where the dialogue shines the best, especially where you have to choose your words wisely when you are forming, alliances and stuff like that. So there's a lot of replayability in this, especially when it comes to the combat, the different clans, and just the story itself, I believe. And there's plenty of side stuff to engage with, even though a lot of it is just kind of fetch quest stuff. Now, do bear in mind that this Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 review is all based on the press access and the early access gameplay, so I can't speak about the full end game or anything like that, but only what I am allowed to show and talk about. So all in all, I do think Bloodlines 2 is shaping up to be a great game. Now, it might not be the massive RPG that we wanted it to be, similar to the old game. Please do check out my previous video as I compare both of them. But I do still think this is a great action game, blending genres, from like Dishonored, that kind of immersive sim, hub-based world, even if it isn't truly an immersive sim with its gameplay, Dishonored-esque combat, and, choice and consequences, even if it is stripped back and on a, kind of smaller scale, similar to that of Telltale, where it has a limited number of, choices and stuff, and Mass Effect. I think if you're looking for a blend of all that kind of stuff, and I love all of these different genres and games, I think you're definitely going to be happy with this. I'm not going to go into every single clan, but there are tons of them. They all change up the gameplay a lot. Like I said, you can be, you know, more of a persuasive vampire to lure people in and kind of, you know, use your good looks and charms to get, you know, blood, or you can be more of a stealthy vampire and just sneak around in the shadows, or you can go full chaos and just explode a bunch of people, turn them into just blood sacks. There's a lot of choice here, especially when it is to do with the combat, and the actual interaction with NPCs is good enough, I think. And honestly, I'm just glad that this game feels refreshing, because we don't get many vampire games, especially vampire RPGs, especially ones like this, you know, where it is much more of a focused experience. It's not trying to be a massive bloated game, and honestly, I find that refreshing. It's nice to have a game that is more focused, and I do think that the story, the world, is interesting. Even if, you know, some of the stuff doesn't exactly get my attention, the world itself and, you know, discovering different NPCs to interact with and having different quests and, you know, this overarching theme of figuring out what's going on with Fabian and playing around with different clan members, even though the politics of them is not as complicated, I still find that all very fun, especially when the combat is this satisfying. So I would recommend Bloodlines 2. So thank you for watching, my wise ones. I do hope you enjoyed this review of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. I do think it is going to be a good game from everything that I've seen so far. And I'll be seeing you in the next video. Have yourselves a great day. And if you're new, subscribe. I'll be seeing you in the next video. Peace out.